You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Welcome to episode 214 of Teach Better Talk. My name is Ray Hewart, and as always, I am with my beautifully loud co-host, Jeff Gargis.
Did you do the thing?
I did the thing where I described you in the way that
the way you want to describe
our guest. Because Melinda Miethe is our guest. We'll get to that in a minute. And she is like beautiful and fabulous. And she has such a loud voice, which was so fun because we worked in a middle school together. And like we would always just get to like scream down the hallway to students and like be loud at games. And I'm just saying, yeah, beautifully loud. I don't know that you, though, Jeff, I would consider you beautifully loud.
You could say loud. I don't know if beautiful needs to be in front of it, but I'm definitely loud.
I think that your wife is beautiful, and so
maybe
it's
that
like the transitive property.
Since we're married, we get to trade, like she's the beautiful and I'm the loud.
Let's preface, because you're married, there are a lot of characteristics that are in your household right now that wouldn't exist if she was not there.
Wow. That's true, though. It's accurate. Anyway, can we highlight someone who doesn't get highlighted very much or enough, for that matter, who is phenomenal and so valuable to our team?
This is awkward. Are you talking about yourself right now? Like,
I am. Would you like to? Can you highlight me for a little bit? Right. Great. No, I'm actually talking about Bella.
Oh, Bella.
Can we? So you get to work more with Bella, like day to day with her. But like she's so cool, she's so fun, she's so easy to work with, and she really is. I mean, she plays a very important role on the team, but her face isn't. She's not on live video. Her name doesn't get tossed around as much. So like a lot of people probably don't know who she is. And I think we should highlight her, and we should push people to go follow her and connect with her on Twitter as she's growing and going through school and stuff like that. So can you talk about Bella? I'm not even going to do the 30 or 60 second thing. You can have all the time you need to just tell us how awesome Bella is.
Yes, and as long as while I do that, you make sure you get her Twitter handle, because I don't know that I know it off the top of my head, but you will find it because you are the coolest co-host of Teach Better Talk.
I will not find it. Chris is going to find it and put it. Oh, you want me to find it so that I can say it?
Yeah, obviously.
All right, you talk. I'll find.
So Bella is our social media assistant on the Teach Better team. Literally, if you would to like put her like position, I feel like in like one sentence, it would be manages all social media. Like she keeps her eyes on all of our social media accounts. She lets us know things that make sure we don't miss anybody that tweets at us or like post in our private group. And she also makes sure that we have content that we're constantly sharing out to our network. So for those of you who follow us on like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram, like you see us posting all the time. Bella is an enormous part in making sure all of that happens and executes it beautifully. I actually just got to chat with her today because we have a weekly call scheduled every Monday. And so I got to chat with her. And this girl, Jeff, comes up with new ideas every single week on how we can better support our network. One of the main projects we're doing right now that was all Bella taking the lead was highlighting our team members, our speakers network, our guest bloggers, our podcast network hosts, and oh my gosh, I'm missing somebody. Oh my gosh, we have all these groups, right, in the Teach Better family. We're highlighting all. Did I say ambassadors?
You might have.
Either way.
Whatever.
All these groups that we're highlighting for the Teach Better team, we're now highlighting them personally on Instagram. So if you guys check out our Instagram feed, like on Tuesdays and Fridays, you're going to see a very special note, very like special to that person. You get to learn about some fun quirks and connect with them on social media. And Bella does a great job just making sure that we are present and around for people as much as we, humanly possible. So love Bella. She's an all-star. And I can't wait for her to be an educator. I mean, she only's got a few years left until she's out in the field. So I can't wait to see the impact that she makes on students.
Yeah, so I think she's going into her third year, right now.
Yep.
As a educator in training. Is that accurate?
Pre-service teacher.
Pre-service teacher. She is awesome. She's such an awesome addition to the team. Super excited to have her. She's been around for a while too. Like, we're kind of talking like she's new, but she's been here for a while. She interned with us for a while. Now she's stepped up into this position and stuff, and super excited. So shout out to you, Bella. We appreciate you a whole lot. So
also, her and I were in the same sorority. So Phi Sigma Sigma. Shout out to
and same. Yes. So she's at ISU. You're the university that you own.
That's not the university I
own. So this episode, this was a fun one because this is someone who you worked with for a year and a half, 2 years almost, right?
Yeah.
Melinda Miethe is currently an assistant principal, which she was also at your school as an assistant principal before leaving. 11 years in education. She started off in special education. She's helped build and work a special education alternative school. She's, like I said, been a classroom teacher and now been assistant principal for a while at a couple different schools. So just, you kind of summed her up really well earlier with she's just, you said loud, but I think for me it's loud, but it's like she's passionate. She's so passionate. And she loves what she does. She's just excited to be able to do what she does. She's a true example of someone. I wish we would have asked her or talked to her about this, but I'm pretty sure I can say this with confidence that on Monday mornings she wakes up pumped up for what she gets to do on Monday. Versus on Sunday night, dreading what you have to do in the morning. She's pumped up about what she gets to do, and I love that about her. So much value in this episode. Anything you want us to pull away? I mean, I know you love this woman. You worked with her, and we talked forever afterwards. Like, it just came through. So, anything else?
No, I just love her big, audacious dreams. Like, you got to keep working, you got to keep learning, you got to keep doing all these great things, and trying to do more and reach more people, reach more students, reach more learners. And I love that she carries that mindset. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode.
All right, let's get into episode 214 with Melinda Miethe.
All right, we'll be right back with that episode, but I do want to make sure that you know that you should be listening to all the podcasts, a part of the Teach Better podcast network. Yes, Teach Better Talk is a fun one, and we really appreciate that you have subscribed and hopefully rated and reviewed this podcast. But we also have other podcasts that we have the opportunity to highlight over in our podcast network. Head over to teachbetter.com/podcast to see the full list.
All right, we are here and we're chatting with Melinda Miethe. And Melinda, awesome to have you on the podcast. Excited to dive into just your story, learn more about you, get a little insight of what it was like working with Ray for a couple of years, and just kind of learn more about you. But before we get too far into all of that, how are you feeling right now?
I am feeling pretty excited that I have the pleasure to be on here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Miethe, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so stoked. I know we were just joking that we have done 3 recordings tonight. You're our third. And this was totally saving the best for last. I was so excited to chat with you. It's been ages since I've seen you. So I'm super glad that we kind of get our catch up session while being recorded to, thousands of other educators. This will be good. But before we get started into too much of that, I want to make sure our listeners learn about you, learn about the amazing things you have done and will continue to do in education. Would you mind kind of sharing a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. Should I introduce myself, like my background or?
Whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, just share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I have been in education for 11 years now. My first year of teaching, I got to teach, I had the pleasure of teaching, kids who were juniors who kind of slacked off on their sophomore practice SAT test, ACT test. And so I got to learn a lot that year. My background is in special ed. I graduated from Eastern, with a bachelor's in special education. And so when I got my first teaching job and it wasn't in special ed, I just was kind of lost. But I took it as a challenge. It was a program that I could build, teaching the kids how to take the test, teaching them test taking skills and just more content knowledge. I focused more on the reading and the language part of that test. But then I was afforded this awesome opportunity to help my district build an alternative special ed program. And it was kind of just like my niche from the get-go. I took it as I just bled everything I had into it, to be honest with you. So I spent 5 years working and building the special ed alternative school, which is now part of the Kenneth D. Bailey Academy, which is the Danville District 118's alternative school. I worked primarily with high school students who had just an inability. I don't like the word disability. So they had an inability to be successful in the high school, which services about 1,700 kids. And then I did that. I built that program up for about 5 years, and I just knew it was time to go. I knew it was time to go on to something different. You just kind of know when it's that time. So I went to Danville High School my last year of teaching, and I taught self-contained history, co-taught history, and I had some resource students. Plus, my son was a freshman, so I had to stalk him in high school. So he didn't appreciate that, but I loved it. And then after my last year of teaching, I transitioned into administration, and I actually moved to the Bloomington area. And I was an assistant principal there at Livingston County Special Services Unit. I loved that. It was a public alternative school for mild and severe students who had an inability to function in their county schools. So I got to meet lots of people, network, and just really learn the ins and outs of administration. And then moving to Bloomington, I actually was afforded that second year that I had moved, I was afforded the opportunity to get to be an administrator in Unit 5, where I met Ray, actually. So this is the start of Ray's journey and I's journey. I started out at the elementary level at Cedar Ridge, and then halfway through the year, I was asked to do an interim position at Ray's school, Evans Junior High. And I took that position, and I absolutely fell in love with junior high kids. I never thought I would fall in love with junior high kids, but I absolutely did. And then I was allowed to interview for that position permanently. And then I got to work with Ray for a full year last year, and it was amazing.
So fun.
It was fun. It was fun. I think I learned more from the teachers than the teachers learned from me. But that's okay, right?
Not true. And then she left us to go off and do bigger and better things.
I did. So currently I moved closer back home. My son is actually 18, and he went to Iowa State this year, and it was just me and my daughter in Bloomington with really no family. And so we just made the decision to move back to Danville, and I got a job with Centennial Champaign School District, and it was just out of a whim. It literally started with a conversation with the principal, and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to interview you." I'm like, "Okay." So it just fell in my lap, kind of, and so it just felt good. It felt right. So I just knew that God's hand had been in the situation. So I am currently the assistant principal at Centennial High School, and I service as their special ed designee. So it actually put me back in my roots, which was special ed. So,
so fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So I'm excited.
It's an awesome journey, other than that year that you had to spend with Ray. But outside of that, I think it's
it was
a great
fun.
time. No, it's really cool. It's a great journey. I'm glad that you're close to family again and back to your roots and there. So I really appreciate you diving in and sharing that story with us. Let's talk about one of my favorite questions on the podcast, actually, when we talk about failure, because I always say I've been fortunate enough to fail a lot because I've learned from all of that. So can you share a story with us about a time that you've had a failure in your career or in your life? Kind of take us there with you Like, what happened? How did you overcome it? And then what did you take away from that experience?
Sure. Actually, when I read this question originally, I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Because as teachers, I think we can all relate that we all fail, but when we fail, we learn and we grow from that and we just become better at our craft, right? So I thought something that I tell my own kids that Michael Jordan quoted, I've failed over and over again in life. And that is why I succeed. So like I felt a lot of, in life in general, but if I think about my professional failure, I think one of my biggest failures was during my teaching years in alternative education. I just took a lot of pride in the safe space that I created for my kids, right? So no matter what they did, where they came from, the difficulties that they faced in my classroom, they knew they were loved. They knew that they were safe. And so I had in alternative ed, you can have different backgrounds clash. And I had two young men in my classroom that were in two social rival groups. I call them social groups. They call them gangs, but I call them social groups. I always laughed at them. They always laughed at me because I call them social groups. But anyways, nonetheless, they never acted out. That whatever they did in the streets, like stayed in the streets when they were in my class, you didn't even know. So the one time I had a meeting and I had to leave my classroom, a conversation between those two young men, were allowed to happen. And so I come back from my meeting, my two teaching assistants made me aware of just some verbal altercation that had happened, some conversation that had happened. And so it was near the end of the day, almost dismissal time. And I just didn't take the time to pull the students aside like I typically would prior to the bell. And so when the students got into the hallway, they started to begin to fight. They knew that they couldn't do it inside my classroom because of my expectations. And so I saw it. I jumped right in the middle of it. People were like, "What are you doing, Miss Miethe?" None of them hit me. It was just, I'm the mom voice, like, "Boys, knock it off now." And then they're like, "What? Miss Miethe, what?" And so after the situation, I was able to debrief with my social worker, my TAs, my principal, and actually the police too. And unfortunately, neither student had returned to my class. And I never got to process what had happened with those two students. And so it affected me a lot, especially once I knew where those kids went. And so I learned just so much from that situation. I learned as an educator and even as a parent, don't take a moment to teach for granted, right? As teachers, we have such an impact on these lives that we have around us. And I had time to meet with those two boys and I just didn't. I didn't take the time to squash the beef. And I just thought that I would do it tomorrow. And so I just now realize, like, never think tomorrow is granted, right? It isn't. And my influence, right, makes the difference when you have relationships with your students. And so I just couldn't get over myself. I beat myself up forever over that. Not literally, but like, it was really, I felt like that was probably my biggest teaching failure, is like, I didn't take that moment, and sometimes as teachers, we get so busy with what we have to do that we don't take that moment. And yeah, it was a failure, but I've learned from it.
Tough. Yeah. You took away the lesson, and that's the important part of it. What powerful story there. So now let's flip it around. Let's talk about a successful moment you had. And this could be something big or something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a success for you? And then what did you take from that experience?
So, my biggest success was probably my last year in the classroom. I felt like I was the best teacher ever. Best teacher in the world. I had not met Ray yet, so this was before my time with Ray.
Oh, come on.
So I had so many successes in my classroom that year. I was actually awarded twice the most influential teacher. That is our in-district teacher award that is actually nominated by students. And I had 2 students nominate me for that. So they did not want to give me 2 awards. They're like, you should only get one. I'm like, no, I got 2 nominations. I get 2 of them. But I was able to get students who were on the brink of failing to start caring. I got the quiet student that sat in the back of my classroom, and she did all her work, but she never spoke. She never raised her hand to participate. She always wanted to work alone in group projects. And then I was challenged with some of the most difficult students at Danville High School. And they were like, hey, like, if anyone can handle them, Miethe can handle them. Send them to put them in Miethe's 5th hour, put them in Miethe's 8th hour. I'm like, what the heck? But I was able to just ensure that they succeeded. Right. I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. This is a hard question.
This is okay. This is an okay time to brag. We're talking about a successful moment. You've got to be able to celebrate those. It's not bragging. You got to be able to reflect on the positives. We spend so much time reflecting on our failures and not necessarily negatives, but just sometimes negatives, but also just our failures because we reflect on it. But there's a lot of power in reflecting on the positives and how you got there and what you take away from those too. So you are good. No bragging here. Okay. Just celebrate.
So part of that year, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you so much. So part of that program, after I left KDBA, my alternative school, they couldn't replace me. There was no teacher in the district that wanted that job. Because it's just a hard job. It's a challenging job. And so I helped, what I call my mom at work. She was in her years of her last 3 years of teaching, and a new teacher start a program similar to mine, but actually at the high school. And so it was a credit recovery specifically for students with disabilities. So it was really, really good to see that even though my program that I had built for 5 years wasn't able to be sustained because they couldn't find a teacher to replace me, but I was able to do something temporarily for the high school and help build that program up. So it was just a really good year. It was just like, okay, like I got this, I've made my impact. Now it's time to move on, right? To make a greater impact as an administrator.
Absolutely. And I think that you kind of hit on like 2 major successes that I know a lot of educators can relate to, where any award that is stemmed from students is always so impactful, right? That's such an incredible opportunity, but also then the opportunity to move into administration and work with educators, because when you're able to work with educators in a school building in any sort of leadership level, whether you're a coach or, a leader with the title like an administrator, you're then impacting their students and their future students and everything else. So lots of successes to celebrate right then and there. I am like very excited to ask you about question 4, because I kind of feel like I'm looking at your response because I get a sneak peek of what some of your answers are already. And I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are for this. But, if you had to pinpoint what is keeping you excited about education right now and all that you're doing, what would be your excitement?
Okay, so I'm super excited. First of all, I would say that the gentleman that I am currently working with got to be on the podcast before me, and I introduced him to you, Ray.
That's true.
Jeez.
Totally true. I know.
All right, so, that's okay. I am currently working with Timothy Alexander, who was formerly on your podcast, on writing my own book. I met him a year ago and brought him to Bloomington Normal Junior Highs. Actually Evans Junior High and Parkside Junior High, but then our other two middle schools jumped on board and had them at their school too. But anyways, he was such an influential person to me personally. and my own journey in education. He has actually taken my son underneath his wings and has become his mentor. And that is Noah's go-to guy at college. And he loves River. Like, he keeps River in check, right? So Timothy and I have met several times when he's in Bloomington. He actually came in Bloomington in June. And in June, he was like, what are you doing? He was starting to challenge me. He's like, you're becoming stagnant. Like, I want to challenge you. What are you going to do next? I said, I have this passion to write a book, but I don't know where to start. And he's like, well, like, you got to talk about it. What do you want to talk about? I shared my vision with him about writing a book about leadership, because in my journey over the past 11 years, I've worked underneath some really good administrators, and I've worked under some administrators that I don't want to mirror. Right. And so he's like, hey, like, what would you call your book? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, that's the first step. You got to think of the name of your book. And I just was like, okay, well, I want something catchy, an acronym that people can hang on to. And so it's so exciting. I'm so sorry. I'm super excited. I wanted to just target my audience to be able to feel my passion and love for education, for students, for teachers. And I thought leading by being real. So I'm like, what could that real mean? Like, what are some important characteristics that a good leader makes up? And so the R in my book, each one is going to be a different chapter. I'm on relatability right now. So I've talked about relationships and relatability, representing the R. E is for energy and empathy. And A is for accountability and being authentic. I think that's important. And then the L, just being a lifelong learner and listener, because I think if you're leading a group of teachers, it's important for you to be humble enough to learn from them as well, because I don't know everything. Like Ray, I couldn't tell you. I'm like, how do you make your math lesson better? It's already awesome. Like, so just like learning from your teachers. And then sometimes your teachers just need someone to listen to them. They don't always need a solution, but sometimes they just need you to listen to them. So just all of these characteristics and traits that I think that a good administrator could lead with, I want to put down, and I want to write a book about it.
Well,
so
I think
I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely something to be excited about. I'm so excited to follow your journey, and especially having somebody alongside you like TA is just an incredible opportunity. So that is so fabulous. And I think this next question kind of goes along with what I can only assume a lot of people are thinking about, right? Like, it's all about advice. Like, you're getting advice from colleagues and friends and peers and everyone else with everything you're working on, including obviously the excitement of a book. But what's one piece of advice that you want to give any teacher, whether it be a new teacher or a teacher in the classroom? What's important for us to know as educators? What piece of advice would you want to leave us with?
I would give any teacher, no matter young or old, the advice of love. Love is the greatest principle, whether you are a first-year teacher or a veteran teacher. I firmly believe if you love your students, they will want to learn from you. The teacher makes the difference in the classroom. And I think if the students feel that love and that energy, they're going to be successful. So you can love your craft, you can love your students, and you will be great. We are all human, and we all seek to love and to be loved. And right now, in these unforeseen times that we've encountered, we have to remember that, like, love conquers all. I promise you that. We are who we are today because, someone loved us. And I think as a teacher, why did I become a teacher, right? So I know that there's Mrs. Overly was my 8th grade math teacher. she's the teacher I will never forget about. And I firmly believe it's because she loved me. Like, love is what separates good and great teachers. Good teachers know their content and can teach a good lesson. But I believe great teachers love their students and can build relationships with them. When you love your students and they feel that love, you will see students wanting to come to school. So you're going to see an increase of attendance. You're going to see them grow as little humans. You're going to see your test scores rising, and you're going to see your students succeeding and their love continue on. So love your students is what I would say.
Wow. Love is what separates good and great teachers. I love that. Didn't mean to pun that, but there you go. All right, let's keep having some fun here. We're going to do the next 6 questions. And your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. Are you ready?
Oh boy. Yep.
That didn't sound super confident, but I'm with
love
you.
to talk.
She's confident. You got this, Miethe.
Good. I like the challenge. All right. What is one EdTech tool you cannot live without?
Any Google platform.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
The best one is Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett.
Who should we follow on Twitter or Instagram today?
Oh, I have to give TA a shout out. So at Inspired by TA. If you are looking for a very entertaining administrator, I would follow Gary Brooksbrin. He is hilarious. He's from Kentucky, and he brings humor to any group of kids, any group of students that you teach. Like, he's got a TikTok or he's got some short funny video. And then Literati Kids. It's a literacy program for kids, pre-K through 8th grade, I think. And then Teach for the Culture. I would say at Teach with the Culture too, especially in these times. This is more than 15 seconds, then I apologize. That was important. That was an important one. Teach for the Culture is phenomenal.
What's a good YouTube channel or website for educators to check out?
Alice Keeler. Alice Keeler is a blogger. She is, I think, some certified innovator, but she shares, I love Google, right? So Google tips, tricks on lines for teachers and right now, like, it's perfect to follow her because you're thinking you're struggling with something on Google and she's already got it. She's got you a little trick already.
Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
It goes along with loving your students. If they feel loved and supported, they will be successful for you. So I say plan one activity to support your students in each week if you can. If not each week, at least bi-weekly, or if not, once a month. Go to an event that your kids are at, whether they play for your school's basketball, if they cheer, if they run track, cross country, if they're in the play, go support them, because if you're involved, it builds love and trust with them.
And what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
No matter how hard it gets and how much you want to quit, don't do it. Don't stop believing in yourself and your impact. You may not see your impact right away, but it lasts for a lifetime on those little hearts that you loved so much.
Boom, mic drop right there, Gargis. That is good. That is good. Awesome
You're a
job.
perfect example of that, Ray.
Oh, you're so sweet, Miethe.
You are.
You're so awesome. I have loved working with students, and I'm just so glad that comes across in some way to somebody somewhere.
You do. And you know what? You're actively, you will go and support some of your kids. And you're that teacher that, the most difficult kids just click with. And it's because they walk in your classroom and they are loved. You love every single student, no matter where they come. You love your kids.
I appreciate that. I absolutely do. I love my kids. So fun. So I want to make sure, Miethe, that everybody stays connected to you. You're constantly sharing out. You're an advocate for student needs. I just want to make sure that all of our listeners can connect with you on Twitter, Instagram, and all the places. So would you mind sharing out how they can stay connected?
Okay, so Twitter, you can stay connected at Miss Miethe. So it's MSMIETHE. On Instagram, I finally just switched from personal to influential. So I'm learning how to but promote myself. But that is, Instagram is at MindySue_85.
And you can find all the links, all the resources we talked about over at teachbetter.com, as well as those important links for connecting with Melinda and keeping the conversation going. So make sure you head over and check out the show notes at teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you give us a rating and review, really appreciate that as well. Let's keep taking this one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing educators and share this podcast with them. Melinda, this was awesome. It was so great to kind of dive into your story and learn more about you and your journey and just all the little nuggets of value that you dropped throughout this episode. Super excited for people to listen and learn and to connect with you and continue growing. So really appreciate you coming on and giving us some of your time. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.